I think we're stable now. I'm pretty sure we're stable. This is Sandbox. So again, there's a bit of history to this. And this is good because it ties into a question that chat asked me earlier during a playthrough of a Super Scout. And so it's important for me to sort of build the context for this because this is going to tie into this answer as well. First, what is Sandbox? Well, you may recall a very old game called GARRYS Mod. Well, Gary, the Gary of GARRYS Mod, which by the way, that's his real name, it's a bit like American McGee, where it's the name of a person, right? But instead of Alice, it's a game where you play with Half-Life 2 models, and then somebody can program the like Metroid arm cannon thing. This is their sort of follow up to that formula, but apparently not in the same realm of what they're hoping for in terms of how you would interact with it, if that makes sense. I think it's best if I show you the website actually, because the website does a great job of showing, at least on the surface level, a fair number of differences that are important to note in terms of how you would interact with this as a user of this, tool, trying to have fun with it and like trying to play a game with it, for instance, as an actual game experience. Right now, there is no base game experience. There's a bit of a sandbox. Well, there was a sandbox itself mode, I think, at some point very early on. But that was, it wasn't updated ever since they switched over to a new way of making stuff. Because of that, all the experiences that you really get are player made. And it must be player made. Because there is no built in sandbox experience. You have to make your own thing. It's primarily marketed as a game dev tool first. It's why, for instance, this time, the fact that you can gain access to it, and you can actually gain access to Sandbox right now because there's a game jam going on. It's because of this game jam. And game jams are typically not for the players of the games, right? It's just a side effect that you need players to play the games to help you like judge them and also to like bring name recognition to a developer. But that's more of a side effect of the core goal of a game jam, which is to A, impress the judge team enough to make money off of it. B, for you to develop something and use the tool as a game development tool. Primarily, that's the primary purpose of it. And that's the primary purpose of, what Sandbox is. It's not, right now at least, it's not a game itself. They will apparently eventually get to the point where they will make a full game out of it, similar to what GARRYS Mod was with the Sandbox mode. But that's so much further down the line. And what they're doing right now is sort of the opposite of how they developed GARRYS Mod. Right, GARRYS Mod developed the tools in tandem with their sandbox modes, and then from there they slowly built up from that sandbox mode into tools that people could use. But it was always focused around this like core experience, right? And you had to go somewhere else to like work with the tools to make your own custom experiences. With Sandbox, they do it the opposite. They're focusing on the developer experience first before the game, in the hopes that will hopefully I think drive development and drive interest from a creative perspective, which should then hopefully then cascade into user interest because there are so many fun, good games to play with, right? It's presumably why they're doing this game jam and why it's so open to now allowing anybody to just pull Sandbox down. And I'm sure, to be fair, I've also heard news that they want to redo the system for a long time. Their blog posts were mentioning this as well because they hated the way that it was currently done because A, was very manual and very time consuming to manage. B, it meant that people who wanted to try it out, to actually build with it, were almost... They were at a huge disadvantage compared to somebody who, like, just wants to play things, because the person who wants to play things will almost spam it more and more often, whereas the person who, like, might want to create things, they know it's a beta test, and so they're not really, like, super hardcore about wanting to make stuff with this, if that makes sense. Like, the amount of people that I saw in the Discord who just wanted to play the Sandbox games, asking for keys, was way more than the developer side, which is fine. They just have a bit of a marketing problem on their hands at the moment that I agree is a bit of a marketing problem, but at the same time, they have never not once said that this is not complete and that they're building like a whole engine experience, if that makes sense. It's also built on Source 2, especially the Half-Life 2 Alyx branch of Source 2, but I don't know how much further ahead or how much they've departed from it. And they're building like a scene graph system on top of that, so something similar to what you would see within Unity. And this is going to be in beta for a very long time, but it seems like a very capable thing with some very interesting built-in assets that you can pull down more and more of, with some very, very good documentation so far, and a lot of really good abstractions over what the Source engine has as a baseline piece of functionality that would otherwise be very, very confusing to use. So that's Sandbox. Now, how did I find out about this? This is a very important question because it ties into the question that chat had for me earlier, which I've written down here. As a developer, what's my daily routine websites that I follow just to, I guess, like find news about development stuff is what I assume the entire inattention was. And my answer to this is I don't have a daily routine because development is just one aspect of my life, right? It's the reality that like the development side of things, it's very much my job. Even though I enjoy it, it's also very much my job that I do it during work hours and I don't really bother. And I only look at what's really out there in terms of either A, really fun experimental things that get a lot of like traction and like hype, or B, very established things that have had time to cook, and now the community can, like the developer community as a whole, can sort of come together, and then you see it pop up on various different platforms, and then you just collate general matureness by that level of interest in it, if that makes sense, as well as like the history of the project, how long it's been going, etc., etc. I treat it a lot like job R&D, where I only do really most of my research on the job, and otherwise there's no point to, because at least for me, and at least for software development, specifically the software development side, while the technologies, aka the abstractions, change very, very often, and while the abstractions themselves may come up with, something new, like a new flavor of it, right? Like there's a whole bunch of, like, instead of Tailwind CSS, instead of React, you might use that other one that I keep forgetting the name of. It's styled after like a game something system. I don't know. It's really hard to explain, but basically there's always like a new flavor of the month that pops up, and I only really care about those the moment that they get large enough to attract attention from multiple different sources, whether that's Reddit or Hacker News or Twitter or something. Otherwise, the fundamentals kind of stay the same, and even if you develop within whatever flavor of the month like framework there is, whether it's like God, I forget the name of it now too. The other one, which is like HTMX, like just built into HTML. What the fuck? Stylo. Fuck. Well, say like for like web development, the alternative to React, where it's like Stylo. I forget the name. Well, Stylo is like, no, that's a styling one. What's the other one? The one that's like an alternative way of doing it that isn't just HTMX, but had a similar kind of idea. Svelte, right? Until that became popular, I just didn't really care about it. Because the reality of it is that just personally, my life is kind of busy, so I don't really care to keep up with the Joneses, and I don't really care to keep up with what's new and what's hot, because very often it'll just kind of fade away over time too. Yeah, Solid is like another one too, but I can't remember what Solid was. I can't remember if it was like a styling thing or if it was specifically for like reactive. Okay, yeah, this one is like a reactive thing. Yeah, you made the card guessing game with the Solid. Yeah, exactly, and like that stuff will come and go over time, and then you just learn about it. But truthfully, learning about the framework itself is like the easiest part. I always find learning about frameworks to be the easiest part. And so for me, I just cared more about getting the fundamental skills, which kind of stays with you no matter what you do. Like under the hood, it's all CSS and JS and HTML. So once you know that, you can basically switch over to anything that you really want. And then you just have to spend like maybe like a week on like whatever framework, and you're good to go. So it's, for me at least, the part of development that changes very often, which is that like upper abstraction layer that very often goes through a lot of shifts, I only really look at when I need to, or when it's interesting enough to catch my eye. And there's no real platform that I go to always sink my teeth into for this news on a daily basis, because it's just one aspect of my life, right? However, s&box is kind of like that, where I go on Twitter and all of a sudden, because I follow Gary, he announces it. And for some reason, the algorithm decides that this is the thing to see. And I'm like, okay, this is it, right? This is the time to go and grab it, yeah? Again, it's not to say that whatever other people do is bad, but rather to say that it's going to change. Your answer is going to change depending on what your level of interest in the thing is. Even if it's a thing that you really enjoy, because I do enjoy programming. I don't care so much to keep up with the news of it, because a lot of it is flavor of the month, or very greenfield stuff that's still very experimental, that hasn't proven itself. That because it's in flux, what you learn today is probably going to be out of date by tomorrow. And then by the time it comes out, it's only going to take you like a week or two to learn whatever the abstraction is on top of whatever concept it is. Because you've already like mastered the low-level concepts. This isn't always true, because sometimes some extractions are completely different. I think in terms of like the streaming protocols, for instance, I mean, this is probably like a very high level. This is at a very low level of abstraction. That's an abstraction on top of a lower level thing, but say like streaming protocols over like say UDP or TCP/IP or sorry, was it or UDP versus TCP, right? Like seeing the new streaming protocols, that stuff is like kind of complex to get your head around because there's a lot of moving pieces. But I can't tell yet if it's because they are complex or if it's because they're simply low level or if it's the combination of both, that they're low level and thus it must be complex. Because otherwise the abstraction wouldn't work, right? Or maybe the basically is the domain complex? Is it because because it's low level it's a complex? Or is it because of the interaction between those two things? It's a domain that's very, very specific, has specific needs, has, a non-trivial requirement to it. As well as the fact that it's low level combines to make a complex overall situation. I don't know. So you do get into outliers like that, but even then, how often do you use it that you have to run into it? And does it make you a better developer? I still don't know what the answer to that is. So, at least for me, development is very much like a reactive thing. And I'm only really proactive about the things that I care about. But the things that I care about are how do you make more fun experiences? How do you make something useful for people effectively? I don't care about, doing things or learning things for the sake of learning things necessarily. I find it fun, but at the same time I recognize that if I just lived my life like that, I'd be stuck in this rabbit hole where I keep going on and on and on and I would never make something, right? I mean, you kind of see that as it is with the stream as is, where there's very limited time to like do things. So but yeah, if you have any things like that, I also don't know how much it transfers well in terms of what you have to learn to other industries, right? Because I know one chatter mentioned that they do it every day for their design stuff. But I don't know if it's because design itself changes paradigms every single day, or at what level of abstraction of design and how mature or how like new the industry is as a whole. Like, what is the thing that you need to look at every day, and what is the thing that you're looking at changing, right? I can draw a very clear line for development stuff, but that's only because I'm in the know. And so it's like I can't say the same for every other industry. So you're gonna have to figure out and like draw that line for yourself. But for me, it's I know the fundamentals; those haven't changed in like 40 years. The only thing that will probably change it is either changing processing environments, if that makes sense, where the processor itself is a whole different architecture, which is then handled by a compiler. And I'm not doing compiler work, although it is fun to learn about it. So I still learn about it. But there's layers of abstraction on top of that, on top of the compiler, like the language that you program in, that never has to care about whether it runs on ARM or x64 or x86. You just tell the compiler to compile for those platforms. And then 99% of the time, your code will never have something that only works in one of those platforms, unless you inline assembly or something. That's just, the reality of most people's development is very simple. So it's like once you know the underlying core, it doesn't really change. But I don't know how transferable that is to other domains and like how they work. So please do enlighten me if you find that to be the case. But for me, it feels like a lot of it is people rediscovering ideas, finding interesting ideas, finding new ways to do existing things in a better way. And just the entire industry as a whole experimenting for the sake of wanting to, which is fine, but it also means that you have to sort of be careful and judicious about where you spend your time. Which I say, despite having downloaded s&box. So why did I download s&box if I have to be very judicious with my time? Because I think it actually builds on the source engine paradigm very, very well. Right now, we have about 2 engines, three, realistically, right? That everybody uses. In-house engines are more and more and more. It feels like it's dying more and more and more. Genshin Impact, for instance, was made within Unity 3D. Why? Because it's a very nice engine to use. There's a bunch of things built in. You don't have to like manage the development of the underlying engine. You can offload that work to someone else. Unreal Engine, same thing, right? And some of them used to have capabilities that the other one didn't. Like right now, you have the nanite. I can't remember what exactly it is. The nanite feature, I'm gonna call it, in Unreal Engine for very high definition games that should help with performance that Uni 3D presumably doesn't have. But aside from those minor differences that really only matter at like very high production levels that cost millions of dollars and thus is sort of out of scope for you as a solo dev versus like a corporate dev versus like a AAA dev or something, there's not really much difference between them. But there's a hell of a lot of work that you have to do anyways to make something work on any of these platforms. There's a lot of work that goes into, for instance, just making graphics appear on screen in a performant way across every single platform that you can export to, right? Let alone just for Windows and Linux, but then also for other platforms like mobile or consoles. Being able to offload that feels nice. Then Godot obviously got that huge boost during the Unity 3D stuff. And again, open source engines are weird because Ogre 3D could have presumably had that a long time ago, but they didn't because there was no driving force like what Unity 3D did. In a way, Unity 3D was the best advertisement for Godot ever, right? On the other hand, despite the fact that all three engines sort of mostly do the same thing under the hood, they all have very different paradigms of how they approach development, right? Unity, it's why that whole, I guess, like, understanding of Unity as the easy engine to use versus Unreal as the hard engine to use kind of crops up. Because learning C++ is harder than C#, but up until you learn all the like, if you constrain yourself well, which is, I mean, basically it's a skill issue is what I'm trying to say, but also that's not a good argument for it either way, to be easier or harder. If it's a skill issue, it's always harder and there's a way to make it easier, but that's a whole different concern about how do you design a language and how do you design like a programming in the environment to reduce mistakes. What I'm trying to say is that it feels weird that there's so many different ways to do the same thing despite having the same underlying base until you think about the fact that people's needs are just different and how they approach problems is different too. And it's nice to sort of see more game engines come in because each one brings to the table like something very interesting and very new in terms of what different ways you can interact with it are, with like game engines as a whole, what the abstractions are at the highest levels. It's why, despite, knowing a lot about Unreal Engine, knowing a decent amount about Unity 3D, knowing very little but learning more about Godot, I'm excited about s&box because what they bring to the table is very interesting to me. They effectively wrap over a well-known engine with a lot of very good production success. Maybe not like a super high amount of it, but at least enough to where you feel confident that it definitely works. And they're trying to build a paradigm entirely different from the underlying representation of data internally that it uses. And they're trying to build like an editor that really works to make it feel good for your average developer that doesn't get too complicated. Feels nice, and it feels interesting to look at. And I wonder how much of that translates into something meaningful that you can actually use that can be capable, if that makes sense. It's a lot of words to say, I'm just interested in this and I want to check it out. Despite the fact that, I'm very judicious about my time and that I think a lot of the programming space doesn't change very often, except for very, very, very experimental greenfield stuff, which will eventually surface anyways from, major communities like Reddit or Hacker News or Twitter as something to look out for, right? These things will naturally surface anyways once they're done because hype will slowly build up around it, right? Whether for good or for bad, hype can also be a function of the quality of something too. It's hard to guarantee that. That's kind of the problem is like the quality of something may not necessarily correlate to the hype, right? Like Godot is a good engine even before the Unity 3D thing. It's just why bother when all the hype is for Unity 3D and Unreal because those already work and everyone knows them, right? So you get outliers like that. Oh, sorry, you get the norm like that, but it works enough for the outliers that I don't really care, right? Especially since like a lot of the core technologies today still work. Like Git, developed like 20 years ago. 20 plus years ago, still works fine for version control for very specific things. There's paper VCS, which is meant to be, the perforce competitor. But then Git just adds LFS, and it's like, okay, well, it still works fine, and it works absolutely fine for what you need to do. Do you really need to switch to a whole new paradigm of handling version control? Probably not, but only time will tell over time. And I'm not saying that you don't want to be the person to find out the answer, but at least for me, as an individual, I don't want to be the individual to find out if that's the right answer and sink my money and my time into it that I can't get back, right? And I need to be judicious about it because you have very limited time. And if you have limited time and you want to make things, you ideally want to spend it on making the thing instead of trying to evaluate whether or not something works as a technological attempt, like a try, like, if that makes sense. An innovation, you only have so many innovation tickets, and I want to spend most of them on the game design elements or like whatever product elements that I want to work with versus spending it on technology itself. It makes sense it would be somewhat different for design. You feel like when you do design stuff, right, you want to look at other people's stuff for reference, information, etc., and also do it daily, not only when you're working on something. With code, you also look at the reference, you don't do it, but you only do it when you're working on something and looking for something specific, and you go to Git or Reddit or Stack Overflow for that. I would argue that's actually not why I feel like the development side differs from the design side. Theoretically, you'd want the same for the development side as well. I would argue that both design and development share that essence of wanting to practice and get better at it every single day. But what I'm saying is that there's a core fundamental that I would want to focus on that has very well-known channels to learn that hasn't changed in a very long time. That once you learn completely for good, right? You still need to practice to remember everything within C++, to remember all the foot guns not to blow your foot off, as well as to build something good. You also need to, stress test it by actually building things. Otherwise, though you may know the language, you may not know how to structure your code in such a way that can solve a particular type of problem, right? It reminds me a lot of how architecture, very, very early on had apparently moved from the very, I guess, like, I don't know what to call it, the very bespoke method used for everything into moving towards patterns, right? The Gang of Four book, well, it's not really called the Gang of Four. I forget the name now. Gang of Four book. Design patterns, elements of reusable object-oriented software, which is colloquially called the Gang of Four because the four writers are very, very well known, and they sort of like define this idea of like shared terms and all this other stuff. They define the idea of like patterns for object-oriented programming. Even mentions this. Basically, what I'm arguing is not the same as what you're arguing, which is, or not arguing. What I'm saying is not the same as what you're saying. What you're saying is that practice is important. I'm saying that I agree, and I think that applies to programming too. But what I'm saying is that what I focus my practice on is not something that I need to go to a news site as a daily routine to find. Once I find it, I just stick to it and I go for it at a core level of my knowledge, and then I'm good. Like, all the other flavor of the month stuff is a fairly simple abstraction that you can learn, but because you know the underlying stuff, it's very easy to adopt to the model because it's all based off of what you know, and so it's very easy to sort of move from the low level to the high level abstractions as long as you know what you're doing, right? It's why I'm such an advocate for learning the low level stuff, because all of computing is built around these core concepts under the hood that form the foundation of what we know. And the only time that will probably change is for quantum computing, which has a whole different model where, like, a bit has 4 different states instead of 2. And even then, it might be abstracted by your processor, so you still may never need to care about it. We just don't know. Wow, the better streamer. Hello, chat. Your favorite co-host, not my favorite, chat's favorite co-host. You're something. You're something. Yeah, now stop interacting with my chat. Get out of here. I'm just kidding. Hello. I'm only mean to them because I know them IRL, so don't worry about it. But yeah, that's my long-winded answer of like, okay, what do I focus on, and why is it not a routine for me? It's because I've been in the industry for like years now, 8 years, and I've done this even before the industry for 5 years since I was like a teenager in middle school since I was like 11. So it's like I don't really need to learn anything else other than like whatever new abstraction there is. However, practice is still important for me, just as it is for design, because I still forget things. So again, you still need to practice every day, and I'm actually very rusty on my practice. But as to like knowing things, yeah, like I know enough that I feel confident that I can solve any problem until some new paradigm comes up that somebody smarter than me has discovered, right? But that's because their interest is in pushing the boundary of it. I'm not really interested in pushing the boundary. I'm interested in learning from people who push the boundary. But I'm not interested in being the person to explore the unknown depths of software development. So, very long-winded answer to say, like, yes, no, there's a routine, but I've already done the routine, so it doesn't really apply to me anymore. And even if I hadn't done it, I wouldn't even bother with the routine. I would stick with the tried and true principles of computer science. Learn all that thoroughly. Learn, like, how to program in that low-level mode very, very thoroughly, which there's like 99% of the time is C, because assembly is like a whole different beast, because every single processor will have its own different set of instructions. I mean, like, there was no SIMD for like a long time until all of a sudden, like 2004, 2008, 2009, somewhere around there. And so you would have to update your like knowledge. whereas the processor handles sorry, whereas the compiler handles the optimizations for you. So it's like, why even bother, right? So there's a level of like, what you can learn that stays stable that is good enough to work with. However, again, this changes depending on your context. If you're a compiler developer, you probably want to keep up to date with everything that, say Intel and Nvidia and AMD are doing, right? Because you just don't know what's going to come out there, right? And you probably need your compiler to support all of these like things. And I include Nvidia because I think very early on they had processors or like something. So it's important to sort of keep up to date just so you can like be aware of how to implement those patterns and reduce code down into these patterns that then take use that can then take advantage of these fancy new processor constructs within assembly. All assemblies work kind of the same though. So I'm not talking about the low level of assembly here. You're mixing it up. I'm not talking about the low level of assembly where it's like all the same. I'm talking about the new stuff that like crops up that adds additional functionality on top of the base. You're correct that all assemblies work kind of the same, except also not really correct because it's like that's only a recent quote unquote relative invention compared to like the early history where like everything worked very differently across different architectures, right? I'm talking more about like the high level stuff. That's like, okay, well, SIMD for a particular family of processors that has this instruction, and you can do this pattern of work this way with these instructions that work specifically better on this family of processors versus another family of processors. That's completely different from all assemblies work kind of the same, which makes sense because they all do just work with registers and like stuff. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the core fundamental aspects of like, what these are. I'm talking about these like high level abstractions, right? And I'm only talking about it from that intersection point. So compilers are that intersection point between you as a developer working in a high level language, and also when you work on the compiler side, not only do you deal with the language side that the developer interfaces with, you also work with the high level side of what the processor sort of like families can like do. So, aka the high level side of assembly that sometimes gets new instructions or gets very specific instructions for very specific processors that can do very specific things, right? The underlying low level stuff has been solved for many, many decades and hasn't changed at all. And nobody really works with that insofar as they implement the spec and it's good to go. And it works, the spec works across the like board. But if you have to deal with like like compiling to, I mean, it's not really a problem anymore because I don't know anybody that has like a 2004 machine still running that they would use for something meaningful. But if they do, then you would have to care about, okay, well, how does your compiler handle instructions from, pre XYZ feature versus post XYZ feature? And again, it even changes, right? Because ARM versus x64 versus x86, though the fundamental concept works the same, there's still minor differences at the high level abstractions that you still have to care about, that you then have to implement because you are the glue layer between the two. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's like when you work on the compiler side, you're the glue layer. So don't think of it as a generic, okay, all assembly is the same. Think of it as I'm talking specifically from this perspective of somebody who wants to work in this very specific domain that has changing requirements, right? But otherwise, yeah, the low level layers of most everything stays the same. It just depends on what layer you want to work at. It's honestly just where do you want to do all of your work on. Some people are really interested in compilers, like very, 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 very interested, right? A lot of people just care about the language, and that's fine. You can actually work on the two separately. Like some people might just work on Rust, the language, versus Rust C, the compiler, and they will do very different things, despite the fact that they're ultimately working towards the same goal, which is making an entire working programming language that can compile to anything out there that and it'll work and be safe and be good to use, right? But again, figuring out where you sort of lie, that's a whole different thing. And then practice, that's a whole different thing. And then learning about where it is, I've already gone through that mess of learning the low level. And then I just need to practice. And so, the flavor of the month will just pop up when it pops up on various platforms. It doesn't really matter. So you would say UX is a low level side of design. Interesting. Okay, so this is good because I don't know the difference between like necessarily say UX versus design as a whole. Like how would you define the split? Right? Like, how would you define that split? Because now I'm curious to learn about this. Because we have subject matter experts in the chat, right? It's not just me being the only subject matter expert on like something, which is nice. You all have your subject matter expert on like your own thing, right? We have linguists, we have neuroscientists, we have artists, we have designers, we have UX, specifically. We have, I mean, we probably have like a lawyer somewhere. I know for sure we have an accountant somewhere too. So I'd be very curious, Lexi, which is nice. But yeah, just take your time, or if you don't want to, that's fine too. I don't really care. Well, like I care to know about the answer, but I don't care if you feel like you don't want to answer. If that makes sense. There's no pressure for you to answer, is what I'm trying to say. I care about your answer and that I'm interested in it, but I don't care enough to force you to like answer me. If that makes sense. What's the question? Like, why is UX the low level of design? Like, what is the high level then? And then how do you like what's the differentiating line? And then what's the focus of UX versus say, I'm assuming the top end is UI, or like the like stylistic portions of it. But I like, do you see? I guess my question is like, what's the difference between UX or UI as well as the stylistic choices that you make, right? And how do you like layer the hamburger? Like what goes on the low level, what goes on the high level, what makes it more fundamental to something versus not fundamental, and how do they all interact? Basically, like a good rundown of like what you do effectively. Anyways, that's why we checked out s&box. Again, the very long-winded like answer to a question. That was a good like half an hour answer, but I don't like to give very like generic answers. It's why I give very specific scenarios for like things, because again, when that chat I said all assemblies work kind of the same though, that's gonna happen if I say just a generic question. It's why I pointed towards very specific examples of like what these various things are, because there's no real generic answer that really works other than, yeah, at least in programming, a lot of the high level stuff changes, but it also depends on where you want to work. And there's a whole bunch of factors too in terms of like what you want to take your career as, and like what you want to focus on as your daily work too, and also what your goals are with your skill set. So there's a bunch of questions to answer, but in general, for me, I don't have a routine. So good. But yeah, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have some way of keeping up with the industry though. I do think it's important to at least keep aware of what's happening in your industry. So, but I don't check it every day. It's not really. It's just a job for me, even though it is an interest. And so I don't keep up to date in like very very specific domains to get like a high level of like, okay, 1% performance more, use this technique. Like I don't really care. But if there's like a cool general thing that's coming out, like I hate to say it, but like AI and like ML, there was a future where it could have been used well and it didn't replace human lives and it didn't ruin human livelihoods. That was cool while it wasn't at that stage when it was stupid funny with Will Smith eating shitty spaghetti. And now it's now it's obviously being misused, but the technology as a whole is kind of strangely free. Well, not really free. It's not really free of consequence. It is being trained on existing material, which is a whole other bag of issues. So we'll see how that eventually layers out into whatever the industry wants to do with the legal side of things. But yeah, that's a very long-winded answer to say, not really. I only care about the things that I'm really interested in, which is s&box. Now again, there's a game jam for this for a month. I just want to see how this thing works. This is the example, by the way. The example is for Sweeper, but I don't see the Sweeper. However, I see a very familiar interface like Unity. So again, apparently what they had before was very similar to what you have right now in the Source engine, which is it's the entity system. There's no real editor experience for code and stuff. You can attach very shitty scripts to the things. At least when I worked with the Source 1, the scripts were very, very limited. And if you wanted more than just whatever the scripting could do, you had to go right into the actual programming side of it and go right into working with the engine as a whole. And then I think at some point they realized that they didn't want this model because it was too hard to work with, which makes sense. The scene model makes a lot more sense. I've talked about this before, how object-oriented programming in general is a great way to model problems because it fits our existing mindset of how problems work in the real world, but also how things are in the real world. We think of objects as like, hierarchies of things, of like subclasses, right? Not necessarily, like that it's beneath something, but rather that it's a subtyping of something, if that makes sense. But BRB, I'll explain more about s&box and we'll dive more into this. I need to go to the washroom, make a quick call. It's about that time. So today's going to be a longer stream. So just BRB. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. I was talking on the phone and then my niece took over the phone. It's so funny talking to my niece now that she has like control of her words because she gets distracted so often. Then she shows me something and she just says, Okay, but she doesn't finish the sentence because she clicks the button way sooner. Anyways, let's take a look at this. Look at this engine because I'm curious about what the engine does, and I'm curious about if the hype around it is exactly what I expected, or if I've overhyped it in my mind. But I'm curious about what this example is, even like what is exactly the sweeper example? What makes this an example when there's nothing that I can see on screen, for instance? It's weird the way that this is. Like you have Hamner for ending maps, sure, but what does that mean when I open this? I guess the best way to show this is if I show my entire screen, huh? But I really don't want to. Or I just have a bunch of window captures that do this. Wait. Well, I mean, the hammer tool has nothing in it, but this actually seems like a bunch of links to various different tools, which is interesting. We may actually have to save this for another programming stream then, because I am actually not... I haven't really cleansed my system yet in order to allow for like a true good programming stream. If it needs to open like a bunch of different windows. So I may need to do that or set up a better window capture setup, at least within my hierarchy, to make it work. Let's see if I can just run it. Let's just see what happens if I play it. I know this thing has hot reload, for instance. Toggle between play this scene or play this game. What? How do I know if it's played this game? Load from file. Couldn't find scenes minimal.scene. There was a problem opening up the side scene. Maybe my example project failed to load. Maybe that's why, actually. Because maybe my example project was just wrong. Let's see. If I close this, and I go to a new example project, what happens? Or if I make my own? But yeah, it's interesting to sort of see s&box go out fully. At least, well, fully, I say. But it's funny to see it come out so openly as like a more easy to enter thing, if that makes sense. Like, what I'm trying to say is, I thought they would wait for a very long time before they opened up signups to everybody. This feels like their first test at seeing, okay, well, can A, their service handle handing out all these keys? B, can they attract enough attention to it for people to make things that would be interesting and like fun for people to like play? I still don't know what the point of the sample is. I might as well just make my own project. Sorry, let's just make our own project. What? New project. Game minimal. What? The bare minimum needs to create a game in s&box. Title: no subscription provided. What is this? Huh? You can't see this actually, but well, I can't really show you either. Unless I do multiple window captures. S-box launcher. Okay, that's good. Like a window title must match. There we go. So now anytime it opens, you should see this as well. It's very small, to say the least. Very small. What is title? Did my install like break or something? Add-on. You want to make a map or a model? Oh, I don't know. Like test game. Snowjob. An s-box project, sure. Says default project location. Nah, I'm good. Okay, I know there's known graphics issue drivers. It's not gonna. It's not gonna happen. Don't worry. It's fine. How much space do I have too, actually? Now, the reason why I've been curious about this is because I have a bit of a fascination in the history with the Source Engine. I really enjoyed working with it. We've detected external changes to minimal. What? What do you mean external changes? I didn't change anything. What? You want to load these changes? Load. Sure. I don't really know. Sure. What? Changing. GUID is already taken by game object minimal. Changing. What? I really enjoy the Source Engine a lot. Because I like playing around with the modding system within Source Engine, and that was sort of like the thing that got me into C++ because I was like, okay, I have to learn it at some point to work with this. And it was fun making stupid little mods that will never see the light of day ever again because it's mostly posted on like an old guild/clan forum that I'm pretty sure it doesn't exist anymore. But it could use improvements, right? And so I'm curious how much this has improved from the base experience. But I also don't remember enough about it to remember what the base experience was. I've just heard that this is actually a very interesting paradigm to develop in, even without those base improvements, if that makes sense. Apparently, it's really, really good. So let's see. If I just play this, what happens? The box falls over. That's really, wow. What do I want to do? Well, there's a game concept I do want to do. Let's see. What if it would work? I'm curious about, well, let's just see if I can get like a first-person controller in. So with the camera over here, I can't move this thing, can I? And how do you actually like edit the code, for instance? How do you actually go in and like find things? Widget gallery. A test window for testing. Control widgets, huh? Oh, this is literally just a test widget to like show you how to make editor stuff. Edit shaders. Define hotspot materials. Defining particle systems. Wait, particle editor. How does this work? New. Cannot preview. Asset needs to be saved first. What? Okay, fine. I'll save it. Untitled one. Fire. Your riot didn't do anything. Oh well, yeah, it's not really supposed to do much. It's just meant to do that like message that says that you riot. It's for me to know that you're mad at what I'm doing versus necessarily it doing a fancy effect on the screen. Because I really enjoy having peace and quiet on the stream for what you see on the screen as we're doing something. However, I also think it's important to give you guys the ability to express your displeasure with whatever it is I'm doing. The complaints are heard. I just don't care about your complaints, right? It's heard, but ignored. I hear you, but I'm going to ignore you because I don't care about you. And that's not just a you thing. It's just a reality of everything. Okay, how do I preview this? Okay, well, I guess that's a preview. What the hell is this? Oh god. I will say, every time there's one of these like 3D spaces, it's always so confusing. I want to make fireworks. Pre-emission operators. Enable children to remap. No, pre-emission initializers. Create external particle. Innate from CP snapshot. CP orientation. What the fuck is CP? I don't know. Position in box. Randomly spawns a particle within a specified volume. Yeah, okay. That's good. Yeah. Randomly. Sure. Position from chaotic attractor. I'm assuming that's like a random thing that sucks things in. If that makes sense. Set float. Oh, you know what? I see what this is. Initialize it. Okay, I see. Like how does it spawn into something? Okay. Cool. Okay, so I don't know. Control number. Min 00. Max 555. I don't know. Let's see what this is. Cannot preview. Asset must be saved first. My brother in Christ is saved. What? Huh? Use local space. Yeah, sure. Okay, operate a fade, operate a time offset. How do I add like a child? Yeah, here we go. The principles of UX remain consistent, much like those of low-level programming, and serve as the core fundamentals basis for UI design. User experiences, in other words, it's a user-focused experience that ensures the users can have a fluent and intuitive experience in interaction regardless of the context or manner. UX is pretty much the core logic. Okay, so my mental model was correct then. Okay. And the UI primarily concerns the aesthetic aspect of the interface. I think it as a high-level programming language where core is already done for you. Now you actually got to bring the functions to life. Okay, that kind of makes sense to me. But I guess I'm curious about like, is like the style of something also covered by the UI? If that makes sense. Like if you want a button and you want it to look a certain way in a certain style, that falls on the UI. But the core elements of how people interact with the button, including all the various interactions across different input devices, say, or modes of input, would be handled by the UX, right? Or wrong? If I'm wrong, let me know. But I'm glad at least my mental model for UX is correct. But I'm trying to figure out what encompasses UI, if it's just literally everything above the UX layer. If so, then I guess my mental model is correct too. But I haven't done enough of it at a good enough level to where I can see the delineation. Which is actually the core of your question too, of like what routine do I have? Because that question comes from a place of like, it's almost like, because we just don't know about, because nobody will ever be able to know what the delineating factor is specifically within every scenario until you go through it. So it makes sense that the question was like asked too. It's just one of those like hard parts of like, if you don't know what you don't know, how can you know what you don't know? Do you know what I mean? And like, you only really understand the complexity of something once you understand it fully with all of its complexity. The experts in it know so much about it that even the minor thing feels like a major difference. UX gives you the rules, but the UI makes it look. So yes, okay, perfect, okay. That's okay. Thank you for that. That's a very interesting delineation. Now my mental model feels a lot better for UI and the UX stuff. I appreciate it, Chad. Good explanation too, actually. That was a very, very well-formed explanation. Or like a very good way of explaining it. As you can tell from my very bad English. Break wood. Is in a different directory from the child. What? The parent particle system. Oh wait, no, I don't want this, right? How do I add children? Wait. Special content base assets. Uh, cloud. What? Particles, materials, post process, shaders, citizen, assets, clothing. Citizen, I think, is their person character. But how do I make it operators? Wait. Hmm. Oh, asset name. Never mind. It's right here. Oops. Okay, I see how this works. I see this works. But the thing is, UX is not only using web stuff, it's also using service design, which is little to do with UI. Yeah, that okay, so that I actually knew about beforehand as well. Yeah, it's in the context of what we're talking about, it's just like, the programming stuff. But you're right in that UX is kind of technically everywhere. Though I wonder, okay, does that also extend to even the things you use on a daily basis? Or even the things that, say, like a fire escape door, the way that it has like a push down bar and the way that you interact with it, such that it can only be opened from the inside, and it opens very easily when pushed on in a very particular forceful way, right? Is that UX as well, or is that a part of the service design? Because in my head it is, but I don't know if that's actually true as an industry standard. It is. Okay, good. Okay, so my mental model does make sense then. Okay, yeah. Okay, then in which case, yeah, I knew about that, which is like nice. Not to brag. I'm not bragging or anything. I'm just saying. But okay, cool. Thank you for actually clarifying that. That's a very good way of clarifying it. Good. It's good that we're all here because we get to hear about it from each other. We're not gonna deal with particles, but how do I add behaviors to things now? You have a bunch of cubes. Let's say I want to add like behavior to, to the camera. Okay, let's see if I want to move to the camera. Add a component. Sure. What's like new components? Huh. I guess you would make your own component. Is there like a control component, like a UI, like an input one? You can't see this. Navigation. No, that's for nav meshing. That's for like moving units, moving entities independently through like some programmatic heuristic. But how do I do not UI? How do I do input stuff? Input. Let me search input. World input. A router for world input. The best place to put this is on your player's camera. That was easy. Left mouse action, attack 1. What? Reload use. Reload. Wait, what? Why do I want to like reload? What? Huh. Movement. There we go. Movement. Is there no other things I can do about it? What? Add component. I mean, these are the code files themselves. How do I open project solution? Open solution. Oh no, it's opening Visual Studio. Okay, this might crash me. Not because of s&box. I just fucked up a couple things on my come up computer. So then there's interaction design, which is part of UX, and that's how specifically we interact with things, like the various modes that we may interact with something, right? Or is that a different concern? Like, is that specifically related to like, say, like you are less able for whatever reason, right? Does that deal with that level of modality, where the mode of one person who has, say, no ability to interact with their arms might interact with something differently compared to somebody who has only like the use of both of their arms or like one arm? Or is that specifically how it interacts with like generic forces? Or is there even like a distinction? Like, does it matter? Basically, what I'm trying to ask is, does that matter in terms of like specifically what capabilities are available on something interacting? Or does it matter in terms of general forces? Like, if you push on something, it doesn't really matter what you use. You could be like the like Dark Knight from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and he could still push his like body against the like bar to open the like door. If that makes sense. Like, is it very simplistic in that sense? Also, sorry, I'm trying to get this capture for my code editor to work. I haven't used this code editor in a very long time, so Visual Studio. Also, 2002. What? Snowjob. Here we go. Yeah, good. How's this work? Interaction design make sure you know that you interacted with it. For example, pressing a button, you see an animation, and maybe sound. Oh, okay. So I had a completely different understanding of it then. So, hmm, was it? Hmm, is my understanding of it being about feedback correct then, or is it more than just feedback? Interaction design makes me think like specifically how you interact with it, whereas feedback reminds me of how you get like a response from it, which is like the whole thing of like making sure you know that you interacted with it. Hmm. But also, I may be using like because it's like every single field has its own different uses of a word. That whatever my general understanding of like interaction is may not encompass the meaning of feedback, even though it should, right? So it may just be a problem of my meaning of interaction doesn't include feedback. Feedback too. It's often interchangeable in the UX bubble. Okay, is it interchangeable because they effectively mean the same thing? Like with an interaction and feedback, like those two things, or is it interchangeable because one's like the colloquial understanding, if that makes sense, right? If that makes sense, versus like one is like the industry, the standard term understanding. It's like it's like in programming, calling pointers versus this like handle to something or this spot in like memory. It's like you can refer to it multiple ways, but it all means sort of the same thing effectively. Comments node. What's this? Well, interaction design books, they go over feedback. It's part of interaction. Oh, so interaction has more than just the feedback. So is my understanding of feedback wrong then? I'm actually curious about this. I'll have to write this down. You don't have to answer, and you can tell me if you're like tired or not. But then in that case, in my mind, it feels like my understanding of feedback and what the word interaction means is maybe wrong. If that makes sense. Like my understanding of it. To do UX books. I'll find some books somewhere and I'll read them. How does it work? Comment node. Comment node. What? Create UI. Graph view. Main window. Wait, you actually get access to the main window itself. Holy shit. That's interesting. Huh. Most engines actually abstract this to a very heavy degree where you don't even get to use the main window ever. Which is annoying, but it makes sense at the same time because you don't really want people to like mess with it too much. But sometimes if you want to do like say Rusty's retirement, but you want to do it with a truly transparent window that actually gives, or you want to do like an overlay on top of an existing program, it's kind of handy to have a window that always stays on top of something that's in the overlay layer on on a Windows program that then also doesn't capture input except for specific hit areas. That then just feeds the input through without causing huge performance degradation because you have to use a specific flag on Windows when you make the window. But I don't know if that's true here. Uncompile finished. What? Huh. Reload the shit, otherwise it's gonna be old thing. Huh. Shader graph. Oh, that's for the shader graph. Never mind. That makes sense. Snowjob. Here we go. Snowjob. Properties, dependencies, my component, tools, add-ons, base library, components, citizen, animation helper, network helper, styles, UI. I guess the best place to start here would probably be the documentation. What am I doing going at this? Like somebody who I'm going at this like that meme of like, okay, if you had one thing that you could take to an island, what would you do, right? And I would take just my PC and a copy of s&box. And it's like, okay, good luck. It's like that's not what you would do here at home. You would have documentation that goes with s&box. Is there local documentation? There is. Well, no, there's not. You get to see it with me here. But that's what I was doing, and so it's why it felt like very difficult to like parse. Makes sense now. Gotcha. Okay, cool. We're gonna do Bane s&box doc, s-box docs. There we go. It's good. Yeah. I know it's very bright. I know it's very, very bright. I'll try on dark mode soon. Is that dark mode in this? My eyes are burning. Thank God. There's like, well, my extension works. Why is the font so small? Is it small or am I just going blind? Hmm. Or is my monitor too far? It might be too far away. So, how to make a game? Hey, that's a good start. Let's how to make a game with the welcome screen. Okay, well, my welcome screen doesn't look nearly as cool as yours. TBH. Create a game project. Yep, minimal. Pick a name for your project. Sure. Project settings windows. What? What do I care about this? Editor overview. Okay, well, I got a sense of the editor all already. That was very simple. The editor, I will say, is very easy to pick up. It's very understandable of where you find things. At least as long as you know something, it's very easy to like transition to it from the ones. What? Developer preview. Oh, this is the FAQ. Sorry, s&box wiki. Developer documentation is to just start. Yeah, well, I'm trying to start. Wait, developer documentation. This isn't the developer documentation. What? What's the difference? Wait, what? Hmm? What? I don't get it. What's the difference between the two? What? Wait. Okay, well, let's say I go through this documentation that was linked from s&box itself. Like, what's the flow? I know enough about hammers for me not to really bother with it because I remember from making maps, so it's fine. I think I'll just skip it, but I'll come back to it if I need to. But then, like, what's the difference between this and this? Like, what's the docs as is, but not the game, but not the developer documentation? Is this for when you want to work on Sandbox itself, like push fixes to Sandbox? Because I don't think it's an open development, so why is this here? That wouldn't make any sense, right? Modeling animation getting studied with model doc. Yep. See, yep. Okay. Meshes. Yeah. Okay. I'm not a modeler, and I'm trying to learn, but let's forget about that. Embed websites, enabling pointer events. Yeah. Localization, UI basics. Yep. Praise the templates, game menus, materials and stuff. These are all, I think, later game stuff. Is that a Notion page? Yes, this one is. The documentation for like this stuff is a Notion page. Actually, I should not for this site. This one already has a built-in dark mode. Yeah, this is a Notion page. It has that like very particular feel. No, I know exactly the feel that you're talking about. It's like this feel. Something about the way that Notion pages are done, they all feel very similar. Again, it's great for shared docs. It's not good for building like a networked knowledge base. But when you're building docs for like tools and stuff, it's great because it's just there. It's open. It works. Very good at collaborative editing. It's just hard to find links from like to and from different ideas, if that makes sense. But that's also like a separate concern. Knowledge base is different from like a wiki designed to help you build things. Okay, so let's go to getting started, like say, coding. Setting up Rider. I have a license to Rider. I just didn't have it downloaded. And I probably should because I do love Rider more. But that's fine. Cheat sheet. What? A lot of things coming between game engines. Here's how to do a bunch of common stuff. Console printing. Yeah, debug drawing, doing a ray trace. Okay, good. Thank you. These are actually very common. Making games. Most of the functionality you can add to game objects, and game objects I'm assuming is like is the lowdown, is the base element of like everything. Okay, well, why does it have components before game objects? What? There's components before game objects. You should start over here. Game objects are the fundamental building blocks of a scene, yeah, which might make sense. The game object through code includes its transform. A game object transform tells relatives to its parents. Yep. Relative to its parents. World position versus local position. Oh, okay, yeah. So it's the same concept as in Unity 3D, I think. Where you can set like its position elsewhere versus thing. World transform. I don't even want to think about world transform stuff, man. I have nightmares about that shit. It's just a weird different model that changes depending on how you like build different things. And I hate having to think about it because I hate having to orient myself across like 3 different things. And I know there's the finger trick. There's like a trick with your fingers where you do, I think, your middle finger down. It's like middle finger down, index finger out, thumb out. So you form an L with your thumb and your middle finger, and your index finger form like an L shape as well. And those are your 3 axes. And then one of those, I forget which is like X, Y, and like Z. Or actually, no, one is up, one is down. But that's how you do it, and then you like use this to like figure out okay, like which way you're supposed to be facing based on various. It's a good quick hand, but fuck that, because this is relative to the world, and I never understood how it relates. Depending on the engine, they switch. Don't even get me started. I hate that. I hate that so much. Unreal Engine and Unity 3D. I hated having to switch between them and learning them both because yeah, they switch, and I don't know why. Why can't we all agree on a single standard? Isn't there a mathematical standard? Like what's the math XYZ? Like axes. What's it called again? Cartesian. Look, there's a Wikipedia standard. Actually, I think this also shows you the finger thing. Z up, Y in the what's it called? The lateral plane, X in the horizon or something. Whatever the names are called. And then here's the finger trick. Those look like it's a specific type of peanut that has this weird flavor. It's like a very odd flavor to like say. Anyway, so let's go through these docs. So I have an idea of how to go through these docs, but that's because I'm using existing knowledge. Where somebody coming into this probably has no clue what they're doing. And I can already see the problem is like the documentation that it links you to from the main editor, like documentation link, the help link, teaches you the tool, and then it links to something else for the development side. But at the same time, there's no like straight up flow to it. There's no flow of what you're doing. You see creating a game project here, and it just stops. There's no way to know what's the next step. And if you go up from top to bottom, you learn some of the more, I guess, complex things. Or is it the not complex things? In my mind, I'd want to start with the behavior. Because I would want to deal with the behavior of something versus the, I guess, like the look of something. Because the behavior would be a lot better. Well, for computers, the Cartesian coordinates y is already swapped. Well, for computers, the Cartesian coordinates y is already swapped. It's like negative on computers. Why can't that make sense, that statement? What do you mean by for computers? Isn't that specifically like... What? Oh, you mean like the windowing system of the operating system. Yeah, okay, yeah. I see what you mean now. Yes. And then for like the monitors themselves. Yes, yeah. I thought you meant for like in general, but I was like, in my mind, the 3D space is like specific to whatever application it is. But you're talking specifically about like the monitor space and like your actual screen space. Yeah, not only is the Y swap, well, yeah, I guess only the Y is swapped, because technically it's only the Y, and then the X is still the same. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Where it starts on the top left. I still don't know why, and I remember reading about it once, and apparently it's some legacy reason that they never changed. But I feel like that's a mistake, because legacy-wise, why do we live with the mistakes of our ancestors? It doesn't make any sense. Anyways, coordinates, what? The coordinate tool is used to work on larger maps in chunks. Coordinates, oh, like the ones you put around spaces. That's a good name, actually. But yeah, all of this, like, it's weird that the flow of this doc that you get from s&box starts out with more high-level concerns of what your level is, when you don't even have game behavior, if that makes sense. Because by default, there's not really much to work with in terms of the game, if that makes sense. There's not really much, like, features to work with. Like, if I go back and I look at what features are available to us as like a baseline, what's in the game, as like a script. So if I add a script to this camera, for world input, I just have left mouse action and right mouse action. Which doesn't, like, I can only control it based on the left mouse button or the right mouse button. And it, well, you can't see it because of my model, sorry. And then on top of that, it only maps to, like, say, attack 1 or attack 2, which is like, okay, well, how do I do other things? And how do I bind it to WASD? Well, you can't. You got to make your own. So, you know what I mean? Like, even something as simple as wanting to start with the input of the camera, there's nothing already there. So I'm surprised that the docs start here, but that's just a minor nitpick. Well, not minor. It is kind of annoying because it's like, okay, if you don't know what you're doing, and I didn't already have experience in this, I wouldn't know to skip all the way down to the coding section. But even the coding getting started section is like cheat sheet first. It's like, okay, top down, is that the most important thing? I don't really know. It's more alphabetical, actually. I just realized this is an alphabetical doc. It's not ordered by importance. It's ordered by it's by the letter that it starts with, which might be not the best way to do it for a documentation that's in the help section. Not sure. But this is the general... Wait, so there's a different documentation? What? S&box resources. General engine tutorial / programming. Sandbox official documentation, which should lead to here, I'm assuming. Yeah. So I have that open. Somebody's tutorials, which are cool. It makes sense that there's no official one yet, because again, this is a very alpha stage, right? I'm just saying that this is a very alpha stage. C# resources, listen, they're just doing you a favor because this is not really their concern. Okay, same. Okay, so game objects. Is there anything interesting about game objects that changes depending on what I think it is? There's tags. The tags can be used thing. Yeah, from a trace, you can do traces on it. Yeah, add or remove tags, and you can also do it. I'm assuming through the programming, through the coding itself. Directories, you can use scene.directory, but by a name or GUID. Oh, that explains that error message that we got about something having the same GUID. So everything has its own specific GUID. Can I see the GUID in the editor? By name or by GUID? You can use scene.directory. You can also query. How do I... but in the editor, how do I see the GUID? Is this game object enabled? Yeah. View network settings. No, just leave it. Why is there a smiley face? Wait, Chad, you use the exact same smiley face that's like here on my cube. What the fuck? How did you know that? Why is that like the default smiley face? Sorry, that's stupid. Of course, it's based on the font. Sorry, that makes sense. These are expensive, so you shouldn't do it all the time. Oh, as a property, sometimes component may need to reference a particular game object in your scene. You set it as a property and then reference it with how to integrate through all the game objects in the scene to find it. Yeah, okay. So yeah, so you just put like references on it. Body.clone. That's interesting. I feel like there's a very specific gotcha here why you have to do the clone here. If my understanding of clone is correct, if you don't do it, do you modify the base of it instead of having a copy to it? Because it's a reference. But what does that mean for something that's used more of as an asset versus... but this is referencing a particular game object that exists. Okay, never mind. That makes sense. Okay, yeah. So properties, attribute property connected to your property member. Allows you to slot the information of the property outside the code. This allows the component to be more reusable. Huh. Like what information? Max health can be changed within the editor now, but defaults to 100. Huh. So I couldn't know the max health when it starts up? Okay. Well, I mean... Well, I know what property members are, sorry. But this is literally just saying this exposes it to your editor. Slot in information. I think it's because of the way that they use the word slot in information that like had me tripped up for like a bit. See attributes and component properties. Here we go. Okay, well, what is this? Miscellaneous? Okay. Methods. Yep, you can find a full list here inside that documentation. Yep, you can override them to do things like on update. These are like the virtual functions. I mean, I call them virtual functions because I'm coming from C++, but whatever it's called here in C#. I forget the name. Every programming language uses different names, and I hate it. Miscellaneous. Miscellaneous. Is it? Okay, listen, I'm just saying. I do language way it's spelled. Iphonic, right? Iphonic. I don't abide by the silly rules. Silent letter, I pronounce that shit. What's a silent letter word in English? I don't know, what's like a word? Why can't I think of anything? Awry. Wait, is awry a silent letter word? I don't think it's awry. I guess, yeah, I guess you do skip the W. Thought. No, I pronounce that one like... I always go through every single... It's phonics, baby! It's phonics! Enabling and disabling. Yep. Disable thing. Okay. The component is disabled. These are skipped. Okay. Yeah. Can you skip specific functions too? That's a optimization thing. I don't care. Managing a component on a game object. Get or create. I see. Or I can just get it and have to see if it's null. Oh god, null checks. Try get. Yeah, that makes sense. Didn't know that I knew French, eh? Oui. My French knowledge is on the level of like a 5-year-old. Je m'appelle stick. A2 Brutus? That's not French. Well, it is technically French too, but it fits. The sentence structure fits. Or l'esprit d'escalier. Omelette du fromage. Passepartout. Auth tokens. HTTP request step networking. The networking side seems very complex. And actually, I was worried about this, that we wouldn't be able to do what I wanted to try and do, which is like a single server for everyone. But I wonder if we can. Because theoretically, you can just write your own system to then communicate with a separate server versus using their own server. What's the lobby system? What? The lobby system exists so you can join and query lobbies in a way that suits your games. Create a lobby. By default, adding a network hub to the scene. Create a lobby when the scene is loaded. Have you gone to market control, you do this yourself. If it's not active, you can then... What? If it's not active, you can then create a lobby yourself. Or not create it. But you can skip the whole network helper. I see. The component itself does this under the hood. And I can actually probably see this by going to... I think I saw it somewhere here in the base library. Networking, this thing. If I go to, like, say, what's it called again? I don't know, on start server, here we go. Task on load. Start server. If start server, and then start server is some... Create a server if we're not joining one. If as soon as this thing gets loaded into the game scene, I'm assuming you would then start a server, and it's already not active. And so it would do it right here automatically. Here we go. Stick be speaking Old English. God, please, no. French only stream. Let's go. If honestly, I would be down to do a language learning stream with you all, but I realize that wouldn't be very fun unless we tie it to a game. It's why I'm waiting for a particular language learning game for us to try it together, because I'm so down to do the whole thing where it's like we do the language learning, plus we play that one dating game that has that guy that like married the actual game character, right? Do old people automatically speak Old English? No, they die. From old age. They die from old age. Oh. Oh. You know, when I was your age, I was alive. That could be a funny skit. Honestly, if you took that and you animated that, it would be stupid, right? It would be very stupid. Client is fully connected to the server. This is called on the host. On active. So when they join the game, spawn this object and make the client the owner. What? Player prefab. Oh, because you can stick a player prefab on it. Otherwise, I see. Yeah. Find spawn location is a whole different thing as well. Of like, and you can set spawn point. Okay, I see. So it's a very simple class. It makes sense how this works. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, but also people who pronounce every silent letter. So stick is in both groups. Your thought. That voice brings you the Cryptmaster PTSD. Gripmaster. I can't do his voice. He does it very particularly. He sounds like a very dramatic villain. That's why I really enjoyed the Cryptmaster voice acting. He nailed that stereotypical dramatic villain voice from like very old school like Skeletor cartoons, right? Like, you know, saying naughty words isn't going to make this any easier. What? Come. Why are you saying come? The high pitched voice where you looped a riddle for some reason. I still have that. You guys want to hear it? I have it actually. You would think you're free, but no, you've just reminded me of it. Where is it? What's come for me? Insanity. I remember. I named it Insanity. Listen. Listen.
I'll make it quick, I'll keep it clean, I don't intend to bore. What is it that belongs to you, yet others use it more? I'll make it quick, I'll keep it clean, I don't intend to bore. What is it that belongs to you, yet others use it more? I'll make it quick, I'll keep it clean, I don't intend to bore.
It's like
What is it
it's just
that
there.
belongs
It's
to
in the
you, yet
background.
others use it
You
more?
hear it. It's like haunting you, right?
I'll keep it
The
clean, I
riddle is
don't
haunting you.
intend to bore.
But
What
you
is it that belongs to
it's
you,
so
yet
quiet that it
others use
feels
it
like
more?
you're hearing
I'll make
things,
it
right? Like
quick, I'll
it's
keep it clean, I don't
like there's no
intend
way
to
this could be
bore.
real.
What is
This
it
has to be
that
a nightmare.
belongs to you, yet
But no,
others
it's
use it
there.
more?
Staring at you in the face. I'll stop that now because I also hate it too. Actually, it's like the ancients are right there speaking to me. It's like the ancients are right there speaking to me. It's sludge. You can join the lobby. You have to create lobby. Querying for lobbies. So we can join the only up obby. What was the answer? I forgot. Wait, what was the question again? What was the like riddle? Wait, okay, let's listen to it.
I'll make it quick, I'll keep it clean, I don't intend to bore. What is it that belongs to you, yet others use it more?
The name.
I'll make it
Your
quick,
name.
I'll...
It was your name. I know the answer now. Because it belongs to you, but others use it more. Because how often do you refer do you refer to your own name, right? I've never referred to my own name more than I've done streaming, if that makes sense. But also I talk to myself IRL, so like it's handy. I rub a duck. I actually rub a duck a bunch. It's why I think I'm made for streaming programming because I rub a duck all of my thoughts, as you can probably tell. Which I don't think normal people do. Default launch mode. Wait, what? The default launch mode determines the lobby behavior when the game is run. You can find it in normal creates a new game without any consideration for launchers, for lobbies. Like normal, but allows the player to select a map for launching. Immediately places the player in an existing lobby. None of these options automatically create lobbies for you. What? I don't get it. What does that mean? Wait, what? Immediately places. Wait, so none of these options will automatically create lobbies for you. It's up to your game, typically through the net helper component that we just saw, to create a lobby when the game is started. But this one creates a new game. Oh, because a game is different from a lobby. The lobby is the higher level concern of like what you join, whereas the game is like your instance of the game, like it loading up. Because I actually should show this first. I probably should have shown this first. Actually, I can show it now. I can show it now. I'll show this first. This is gonna make more sense once I show this. I think because okay, it's because of this. Sandbox itself has a game mode of it. Like it has the game sandbox, the thing that you go to then find other things to play. Main sandbox. This thing. That's why it has that distinction, because this is the game that you play itself. So like from here, you can go into various different games. Like you can play Walker by Face Punch. Walker? Unplayed. You want to try this? Let's try it. Cut the music. This is good for the game. Walker. Fetching server data. It playing quietly in the background is like that conspiracy theory where they would say people put frames in between videos to reprogram your brain. Yeah, exactly. Or like the satanic stuff where it's like if you play like different songs backwards, there's like different satanic messages. Like the whole Simpsons parody of it where it's like join the Navy. Join the Navy. A2, Brutus. My party playing pool. What? Why did it? Why am I playing pool? I don't want to play pool. Stop. What? Leave a party. Leave. What the? Create a party. Hey, get out of here. Who's that? Dingleberry. What the? Why am I in different parties? What? Chat, I'm so confused. Why am I in like a party? Huh? Create a party. Public. 1. Leave me alone. 1. Okay, there we go. Okay, now we're not in like different parties, so you don't feel lonely. I want to try something, okay? I want to feel lonely. Let me feel lonely for a second and play Walker. Because I think me joining the party forced me out of Walker because they decided to play pool. That was weird. Like I clicked on Walker. I didn't click on cancel, I don't think, unless I was doing it and maybe I had like a brain fart, or maybe I pressed escape or something. What the fuck was that? What are the eyes? Uh-oh. Chat? Chat performance is kind of bad. Wait, no, my OBS is dying. Give me a second. Okay. Is it better? Can you guys hear me? Is it dying? Is the performance dead? OBS itself has no priority anymore, which is interesting. I think I need to put an FPS cap on this game. I don't even know if you're seeing this, actually. Nice screaming. It's fine? Okay, that's weird. Okay, so the reason why I say this is because the way that OBS works, that I'm not really sure of, that feels weird when it does work. OBS will obviously reduce preview capabilities if the system needs more resources. It is technically lower priority, even though it has the highest priority for certain things, like using the recording cores, right? The problem is that in doing so, it has the same symptoms as OBS crashing. And so there's no actually tell for me whether or not it's crashing, because even the indicator that says it's dropping frames is not entirely accurate. This is just 2 for it. You can't lie to me. I know what this is. This is just 2 for it. What is this? Gary, you can't fool me. You can't fool me. I know what this is. Why did you make this? Gary, what are you doing? Do you also stay up until like 7 a.m.? Oh yeah, that's probably late for you guys. I mean, to be fair, that's just a normal schedule. I remember doing these jumps, going over here. I remember going inside here. I remember it like, because there's a way for this map to end. So 2-4 is a very famous map from... was it Half-Life or Team Fortress 1? I can't remember. It was either the Half-Life 1 multiplayer or Team Fortress 1 multiplayer. But the whole point of this map was that you were supposed to go, like, one team spawned in the fort, the other one spawned down there in the section. And you were supposed to fight across these, like, forts, and then you could eventually get enough points to launch a nuke, which had a button somewhere back here. Nobody ever launched it, though, because the map was played mainly as a permanent... This one. The map was usually played as a permanent multiplayer deathmatch map. You can't fool me, Gary. You can't escape your roots, can you? Anyways, yeah, this is what s&box is as like a playing experience. You can just play the game too. No, not exclusive. That's why. No, not exclusive. VSync on. Okay, that resolution is so fucked up. 1440p. It's too hot in the morning anyway. Rather sleep then. So true, King or Queen. Although I'm surprised that you can. I usually struggle to sleep during like when it's hot. I prefer to sleep when it's colder. I just seem to get... I get a lot of energy at nighttime for some reason, which is stupid. Cache and storage. 1 gigabyte used of cache? Actually, that's not that bad. Why am I even like annoyed? Let's find a really interesting game, okay? Let's find a game. Let's play Kevlar. You want to play Kevlar? Let's try this. I don't know what this is. But to show you what the game is, right? Because this is not just a developer experience. That's sort of the main thing, but there's also the game itself. The way it works is that you have a shared client, kind of like GARRYS mod. Well, I mean, kind of like any source game that's like out there, where you have like where you find community servers, except for CS2. Hey, guys, with it's so loud. Volume mixer? Chat my volume mixer. Okay, there we go. Lower this bad boy down to like 40. Good start. Good start. What? Lobby select game. Isn't that really famous criminal Tommy or something? Aren't these like really famous criminals? And then it's like, Bonnie and Clyde and like stuff. Ammo. Object. I don't know, grab some guns. Sure. Object reference not set to an object. Okay, what? Oh, F is your inventory. What the why is that? What the fuck is that? Another shitty work in progress game. Why is it in this condition? At least something interesting in Sandbox. More guns coming soon. What? Holy shit! Alerta! There we go. Very loud. Very loud. At least they're honest about what's happening. So, okay, I want to join... Select game. Wait, that's why it's called Walker, isn't it? It's a zombie game. That's why it does this. It's literally a test zombie game for them to build up into. Something Kalishnikov. It all makes sense now. You also like to sleep when it's hot. How do you sleep when it's hot, though? Like, I feel like when it's too hot, I can't fall asleep. But also, I can't work when it's hot anyways, so... I do agree about the heat making you unproductive. But for me, the sleep, like, you have to be fairly cold to enjoy sleep, too. Actually, now it's too quiet. Yeah, it's good. Zombies left. Anyways, yeah, so Sandbox is just like a random... It reminds me a lot of, like, community servers within, like, say, Counter-Strike Source. But with a much deeper depth to things that you can play. Because it's not just variations of the shooting games, like... like RPG mod or Warcraft 3 mod. You also get like actual games themselves that have their own experiences and the game rules that like change how they play. Like this stuff. You put a fan in your mouth. You put a fan in your face. You put ice in your mouth. Sika game. What? Suka game. What? Pizza Clicker. Sandbox Classic. Kevlar. Scenebox 2. Trouble in Terrorist Town. Why is there Trouble in Terrorist Town? What? Oh, that's active servers. Grubs? This is just... Oh my god, this is Worms. Kitty Cinema. Playback. What? Squirtfire. Pizza Clicker multiplayer. No. No. You can't tempt me once again. I refuse to fall down that Clicker rabbit hole again. Last time we played Clicker games, I couldn't stop playing for like 2 weeks. I remember... That was a very like dark time in my streaming career. Once again, most of you joined before that hellhole. Most of you joined after that happened. Very nice AI. I mean, who really cares? It's not that it's... Whoa. Wait, chat. Oh. Okay. E. Oh. Yeah. Request. Is this what you see every time you join my stream? What is this ad? What is this ad? Refresh to ready for more viewership. Wait, what? Preparing for stream. Preparing
What
a
is this
stream
ad?
I'm already... Oh, God. Oh, no. Oh, no, chat. Oh, no.
What is this ad? Refresh to ready for more viewership.
Oh, no.
Wait, what?
Oh, no.
Preparing for
Okay,
stream.
well, okay, wait. How many times can I do this? Is there more? Is there more screens that I can open myself with? Left wing. Fuck. It's in development. Fuck. This is like the VR chat kind of deal where they're trying to make like a VR chat competitor. Okay, well, when you leave, it stops loading. Okay, well, okay, that's cool. But yeah, you see the viability of this, right? It's basically just an open core that you then can just... Like, the way that this is structured is interesting. Again, it's like that lobby system from early on Source Engine stuff that's now gone within Source 2. But it's not just regurgitations or variations on like a base gameplay type. No, it's just... It downloads whole games for you. It's effectively like a version of Steam library running in Steam is probably the way that I would probably describe it. where you're looking at the Steam store that's specific to Sandbox, and it runs in the same environment. What do you mean Godot? The Godot web editor has limit. Oh yeah, this is true recursion. Like this is actual recursion. Is you run Godot and you make your game in Godot as you are playing Sandbox to make a game. Nobody would do this. Why would you do this? What was the description of this? Open source never felt so good. It's the no ad. Wait, there's a no ad? That's weird. I don't get the point of the no ad. Because do you even gain value from it? You're not making money off of it. It costs you money to run the no ad, no? The recursion? Bricked. But yeah, you see what you're kind of working with here, right? It's why I think this platform has some very huge potential for being a very interesting space for creation. On top of the fact that you have a shared avatar system, so this is my avatar. And you can customize your global avatar to using games that use the avatar system. Obviously, some games will use their own models, but if you use the avatar system, you look homeless. There's no difference between me and like in like IRL and like me in this game. I'm actually the same person, chat. Anyways, I just wanted to show you what Sandbox was because I think it's important to understand the two sides of it to then understand why developing for it is so interesting. You get a built-in, almost library searching tool, like an asset tool. You get a built-in development tool that you can then very quickly load and like play. You have the backing, well, not necessarily, but you have the backing reputation and also the production, at least the production experience baked into the engine itself by being made by both Facepunch Studios, aka the creators of Garry's Mod, Garry, etc. Garry doesn't do this by himself, okay? He does a whole studio. On top of the fact that it's Source 2 and it's running Half-Life Alyx, which was a very it was very cutting edge when it released, but also it still works very amazingly well today. So that this works for VR as well as desktop experiences. This game apparently won the game jam last time, My Summer Cottage. If you're from Finland, you might like this. Apparently, this is a game about a Finnish cottage or like something. I'm not even kidding you. It's about you going to a sauna in a Finnish cottage. It looked good. It did look good. Stick Hobo couldn't affirm. So apparently, but anyways, the point of the game jam and what they learned last time when they ran this was that the engine has a lot of things that they need to fix, particularly around performance. Apparently, performance in the engine wasn't that good. But you could kind of tell from Walker. Like, when we were playing Walker, you could tell that thing was kind of chugging my PC for no good reason. So it's interesting to sort of see people go through this and, see what's up. But this shows how far you can sort of go with this engine. So, for instance, what's my first name? Stick? Thing. Continue. Yeah. That's me. Nice. That's so good. Nice. Wow, that's amazing. I kind of don't even want pants, TBH. I do enjoy the look. The naked look. Face. Nice dick. Thanks. I grew it myself. Okay, these I've heard these shorts, if they were shorter, are called like this is the version, like this is how you dress slutty as a dude. Not the shirt. Obviously it's not the right shirt. But these shorts in particular, or the towel is like how you would dress slutty as like a dude. I've heard that that's the case. I'll wear my socks. I also wear a towel. And I don't know if I want to wear a hat. I'm not ashamed to be bald. Good. Confirm? Yeah. Hello? What? Why is it stuck? Oh. Relax. Take a sauna. Wait. Is sauna the verb? I thought sauna was the place and not the verb. The bottom said fucking gnome. That's good. That's really good. Sorry, my system. There's something weird about this engine. In particular, the way that it makes it impossible to interact with the rest of Windows. Like everything else in Windows, like I can't even interact smoothly with the volume mixer. It's like it sucks out all the power out. It's so weird. Settings? More like settings. What? Our PSX game is lagging on your PC? Yeah, we love modern gaming too. What about you on VSync? You unsave changes. Okay. Oh fuck, that made it worse. Run? Why is it saying run? Wait, why is it saying run? Is it lagging for you guys or no? Just let me know, because it just said run and I'm terrified. What? Okay. Let's take a sauna. You guys want to take a sauna? There is no wood. Sauna Vita? What? What's a sauna Vita? Sauna is a place. Sanoa is a verb. Oh, I didn't know that. Maybe I misread it then. Ladle. Oh yeah. Let me scoop this. Yeah, let me scoop this. Use this to cool down and get your blood flowing. I'm a hot-blooded male. Radio.
Yle Radio Suomi. Kello on 5.16. Vuorossa 5. osa 6-osaisesta minisarjasta. Lähdetään yhdessä elokuvateattereihin. Siinä keskustellaan suomalaisten elokuvateattereiden historiasta. Haastateltavana Outi Heiskanen. Ja tässä 5. osassa puhutaan varsin
Does this feel familiar to you, chat? Like, is this the experience? What is the bucket for? What's that bucket for? You like the font. The font is nice. It feels almost hand-drawn with the way that it's done. It's actually a really nice font. It's like somebody writing down like a letter or like something. Okay, so needs wood and water. Okay, well that was a failure. So why am I running? Where's the wood? Ah, what the fuck is that? Oh. It's the secret bucket. What does that mean? Can you please enlighten me on sauna culture? Why am I so short? Get a log. What the log? Pissing on stuff might give different results. Sorry, I need to check something really quick. Sorry, chat. This is why I usually don't stream too late, because I have to do like a bunch of things. So, why does it keep saying run? It's for when you don't want to leave the sauna. But like, doesn't it smell like shit? Like, wouldn't it just smell like shit in the entire sauna? No? Wouldn't it just smell... You know what I mean? I feel like it would just smell like shit across the entire sauna, no? Let's just go kill our neighbors. Here's Johnny! Oh. Fuck, I'm too short to jump over, like, stuff. Oi! Hey, how do you say a shithead in Finnish? Like, what's a good pronunciation guide? Try to write it in a way that I can pronounce it by just reading the English letters. Here's Johnny. Because I'm linguistically inept. Lutopia. Perkel. I actually can't do a rolling R. So the reason why I sound so interesting is because my tongue is massive. You ever see those videos of like, you know, e-girls putting their tongues out and it's like nice and long and they have like spit rolling out of their like mouth? I can do that. I can also turn my tongue sideways. Basically, I can eat. What? Hey, sports, we should go fishing sometime. Nephew, you really need to find a new job soon. Where was this? Oh god. Oh god. Okay, we're gonna leave this game because it's lagging the shit out of me, chat. I can't deal with this. True TBH, fuck Gnome. Gnome better than KDA. Like, Gnome design is nice, but Gnome Foundation stubborn. OMG. Like how stubborn? What's their stubbornness like? What makes a Gnome Foundation very, very stubborn? In your eyes. Oh! Split log. What's the thing? Wait, why did they even bother out there? Can I just do it inside here? Wait, isn't this genius? Tell me I have not just changed the way that you go to the sauna. If you do it inside, there's like again, it's cold outside, right? So you don't want to step outside because you're mostly naked. But wow, I'm packing. But you need to deal with filling the logs. So why doesn't every person who comes inside brings in like one log, and you guys chop it together inside because you're already sweating? Isn't that genius? I feel like that's genius, no? Particle. Particle. I can't do it. I don't know why. Hey, Perkle. Hey, my fucking tongue. Start the sauna. Remember, no shirt. Okay, so when you shit in this bucket, right? Shit, it's my nagging wife again. When you shit in the bucket, right? Doesn't the smell permeate? Like, have you guys ever farted inside the shower? I farted in the shower once as a test, and I learned to never fart in the shower ever again. Because I realized that when you fart in the shower, it doesn't dissipate, it just spreads. Right? You should learn about when you run off from the sauna into ice cold river. So I know about that tradition. But that makes more sense to me. Because it's like the final splash, right? But I wouldn't want to run out in the middle of what I'm doing because we just happen to run out of whatchamacallit, firewood. You know what I mean? Like, I would rather that than running out in the middle of it. It's a different feeling. It's like my skin isn't ready for it. You do it multiple times. Okay, I thought it was a final farewell. Eh? Very nice bus. Okay, I don't... What? Hello? Protocol? You want fight? Eat shit. Hey, Protocol! Hey, Protocol! Come here. Come here, Protocol. The feeling when you go back to the sauna after cold water is insane. I can imagine. Yeah. You know what? You're right. Then it does make sense to like go back in for like a second try. Why is there ice fishing in this game? Okay, I will say for sure, there's something weird about the way that it pulls resources away that makes it very hard for, say, recording software to keep up with this. Like, I can't interact with my OS while I'm playing a game. But the lobby system works fine. That's a face punch member. Huh? Police! Hello, officer. Nice to see you. Where's the bread? Okay, we're just gonna do this for like one more thing and then we'll stop. Because this is... As cool as this is, I want to make stuff. But you can see how versatile the engine is, right? Like, there's whole different games. Like, this is an entirely different game that you would expect to be a standalone game. In any other... Like, you could find this on itch.io, probably. Right? Like, this feels like a game that you would find off of itch.io. Versus this. I'm on a side quest. No. This is the main quest. Okay? You understand. Bread is serious. Without bread, you have nothing. Is it a supermarket? Does that mean supermarket, or does that mean something very, very bad? Roca Copa. I butchered your language. I'm sorry. Where's the bread? Wait. Hey, Stick. Picking up bread again for your wife? Yeah. Food shop. Oh. Nice to see you again. Is Copa the shop part, and then Roca is the food part? Or do I have it backwards? Does the language work in like a different way? Where it's like the thing that can where the subjects are like switched backwards. I'm gonna buy bread, and it's free. What? What's MK? Roca equal food. It's linear. Okay. Cool. Mustard. What? God, I want to slather it all over a hot dog and gulp it down. Something seems really wrong with this mayonnaise. Ketchup, I could drink it from the bottle right now if you want to. Do you enjoy ketchup over there? or is ketchup seen like in different places as a fake sauce? You know what I mean? Anyways, very cool. Exception when calling on destroyer on the character. But you see what we're working with. You see why they made this, right? Like now it's clear why they made this. Now it's clear why the tool works as it does. They're building almost like an entire ecosystem for this stuff that you can just load into together at will, and you just get your friends on it and you just load into it. The only thing I'm curious about is, can you export it as a separate thing? I'm very like, obviously maybe they haven't worked that out, because why would they do that when they're busy focusing on the core first? But maybe that's an option. BRB, sorry, I need to open the door. Sorry. All right, I'm back. What mischief have you been up to? Probably in Italy, ketchup is a fake food. So true, King of Queens. So true. Is ketchup a soup? I don't know. Is it a sauce or a soup? I'm not sure. Basically, whenever someone's, oh, this is for the gnome thing. Maybe even illegal. It might be, depending on like how it's done. Yeah, because like again, I've heard that food culture in Italy is like taken very seriously. Like you basically offend their like everything, which makes sense. I mean, at the same time, it's also like ketchup is its own thing that tastes good. That I wouldn't put it on spaghetti, but I would glaze up a glizzy with a good ketchup spread. You know what I mean? So for the gnome thing, basically whenever someone suggests to make a standard or something simple to make things easier for someone, when people ask them to follow existing standards, they just go fuck yourself and every stuff is, because they're the biggest desktop environment they can get away with it. Oh, for example, they refuse to make external decorations fallback, even though literally every other desktop environment OS has those, and a lot of applications expect them to be present because the apps that don't have internal decorations might not work properly. That's interesting. Yeah, I would have expected them to be, I guess, more aware of. I mean, I'm just taking this at like face value, so maybe we both could be wrong. But it feels like they would be more aware of, like, say, doing specific things and working within standards so that things would just work. Like, it feels like the ultimate premise of you never break user space. Like, you never want to break user space. So that's interesting that they are so adamant about it. Although maybe it's because they have different ideas. I mean, I'm not gonna get too into it, because I feel like, you know, we could make up any particular reason and it wouldn't really make sense unless we were there in the moment. Because I also don't know enough about it to really say otherwise. So, anyways, let's see how this works. Okay, so now you see the distinction between sandbox, you know, the game versus like the editor. What is the difference between the game in terms of, like, say, my interaction with it? Because the lobby system sits above the game, which makes sense for quick play. But it creates a new game. What does that mean? Like, wouldn't all of these create a new game? Creates a new game without any consideration for lobbies. Like, normal allows you to select that map before launching. Because your game might have multiple maps. So you would have the launcher experience, whereas like the normal mode would be if your game only has one map / level that then leads to everything else. Say you build like a story based game that isn't based around checkpoints, but is more based around like your like progress and like things. You would just do the normal mode, and then you would handle everything after the game starts, and you have to make the lobby for the player. But do you need to have a lobby? I'm assuming obviously you need to, because source is client server under the hood. So presumably you definitely need a lobby, which makes sense. It's up to your game to make a lobby when it starts. At least that's my assumption. Unless the game is itself a lobby that runs locally, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm gonna assume the simplest case, which is that the lobby is just always there, needs to be there, and it has to be made, and it will be hosted separately off of the host machine, or maybe it's hosted on the host. I'm not actually sure where this gets hosted. Where does this even get hosted? Because that's for making like your basic lobby. Like, what happens when you make a lobby? Technically, do you make it in their like game server, like master game server, quote unquote, where or like the like global game server that like tries to find instances of it? And then the lobby itself is whatever system you want to have for your lobby. Like you can use RPCs to rewritten entirely. Oh, to like interact with your separate server if you want to make your own custom server, for instance, that doesn't use sandbox or even like WebSockets. I'm assuming that's why. Makes sense. Testing your game. You can start instance via the Wi-Fi icon. Click the join via new instance. Open a new sandbox thing connected to your game. Okay, connected to my game. Sandbox instance connected to my game. Instance connected to my game which might have or has to have a lobby. Does it have to have a lobby? Well, it has to have a lobby in this case. But the game is the game that we're playing, which is whatever I make in the editor. Okay, I see the distinction. Okay, rewritten entirely. Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so beyond this, like, what else do you need to know? Like, how do you know what to do besides going to the developer docs? It's weird the way that it's laid out. Like, this is you would need to know attributes in C#. Okay, well, I know about attributes. What do the attribute? What are they? Icon, category, title. That's for like information. Sure. Component properties in U. This is the property thing. You let me make variables that expose in the inspector. You can chase manually while editing or playing. Oh, okay. Or you can refer to specific. Yeah. So you can like put references on them to combine things. Yeah. And how do you interact with it? If it's like a range or something, then it makes this like range thing and what the title is. Okay, yeah. Range, set of values, group. It's like a drop-down group. Toggle group. What? Groups with a boolean, so like a checkbox. You are toggling on such off the bool. You need to do something within the code to make it respect the toggling. Or the bool will just be turning on and off. Right. Enums are special. Enums are when you have like a very specific set of things. What's the difference between enum and a group? Group 1, title first thing. Group 2, oh, groups are properties. This is not like you make a group of something. This is like grouping it together in the same section. Right. Like I can make a group for just my game, Snowjob. Yeah, enums are this, which is like specific value. So this is the thing that I was thinking about for the group. But it's done via enums only. Which, I mean, makes sense, because you don't want... arbitrary values would be weird. But actually, arbitrary values would be helpful. Because what if you want like the spawn point thing? Yeah, then you would need lists. Yeah. Because that's not an enum. It's just a random place and like coordinates that you want to spawn someone into. Code access list. What? Xbox uses an access list to restrict which types of members you can access from your code. Necessary to prevent access dangerous not just such as process to start, deal, import, or reflection. You can only access types of members that are allowed in the access list below. After your add-on gets compiled, the generated assembly will scan for all used types and call to a type or a member that is not allowed, so this will result in the add-on not getting loaded. Since escaping or bypassing the assemblies results in serious security issues, such as getting infected with malware just by joining servers, please report them. Do not report them publicly. That's fair. As it can be viewed by opening the DLL file itself. You use .peek. I mean, you can use anything. There's a bunch of them to view DLL files, but .peek is really good because, yeah, and then you decompile it and find the rules. Okay. Display info. Right, which is like what... Wait, is this for what your displayer is? No. This is different. File system. Standard .NET access is restricted to prevent rogue access to your files. That's interesting. That means you cannot use system.io to file or variants directly. Otherwise, right now there's a virtual file system that's relative to where your game is. Okay, mounting assets at runtime. You can download from asset. I'm sorry, I wanted this, like, I mean, it no longer exists. The Asset Party used to be the website where they had all the various assets for Sandbox hosted. But now it's on the main site, so you can browse for materials or models. So for instance, you can just have a free chair. Like somebody just made a chair. Or a soda can that has Blue Rat. What? Or Alice Chan, the kawaii weeaboo girl. Or Staker Dolg. What? Or Bread from Yakuza. Bread from Yakuza. Breen Bust. Maps. Could you? I guess you could reuse maps then, right? Realistically, I guess that's how Trouble in Terrorist Town would probably work. Is that you would just build the core logic. You could just spawn the weapons anywhere, and you could use any map that you wanted to, because maps are not the same as games. That's an interesting distinction that I didn't think about that also opens the possibility for longevity for your particular game. Because then it's like you could play your game on any particular map. It's just a matter of like how generic your mechanics are and how they would work with a dynamic map system. Would you lock it down like that Sonic game that we just played? Cool. Interesting. Sounds, assets, okay. Yeah, okay. Whatever. Yeah. Wayland is even worse. Oh, this is for the gnome thing. For a very long time, there wasn't any option to not have a virtual synchronization, VSync, because why would anyone want screen tearing? That's funny. Sorry, that sounded very facetious. Or like something. Is it facetious? What's the word? That sounded very, very facetious. It just, but like I was actually like finding that like strange. Cause it's like why, yeah, cause like why would you make that like forced onto someone? The forward focus? What? Why'd you type forward focus? Let's think about the navigation mesh. Playing guides. Default keybinds. Proton. How to run on Linux. Consequence. Dedicated servers. Huh. This is actually key to our... I'm seeing... Oh, does not currently support dedicated servers. Well, I mean, that doesn't really matter because you have WebSockets, so does it really matter? You just use web sockets. Sorry, my cat stepped on the keyboard. That's why I typed the word, the two words, forward focus. Sorry, my cat typed forward focus. Where is your cat gonna type join the union next? What? Good bit. Solid bit. How do you... Can you package something made in s&box separately? I assume no. Like export. I don't know. Export? Package. Nah, that's my dog's job. Export. Huh, wait. Standalone. Working on export to standalone version. So they're working on it. So it is in the plans. Which I guess would be interesting, because s&box by itself has the only up obby system too. So they have to get rid of the only up obby system, and then they have to move on to just exporting it as a full package containing the base core engine plus your assets. Okay. Okay, well the default help wiki that you get from going to s&box, like the tool, and then going to the help button doesn't help you. Like, that doesn't really tell you much unless you know what you're doing. This is very, 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 very centered on somebody who already knows what they're doing. If you don't know, this help documentation doesn't help you. I can see why they want more people to use this and why they opened it up to public release, because this is their chance to see how people go through this and how people can figure it out. And I can see now why they gave a month to do the game jam, because I don't know if they could do it otherwise. It doesn't seem possible to do this otherwise when you consider that you have to learn the thing. Especially if you don't want to join the Discord. Okay, I hate joining Discords to learn things. However, they also recognize, they literally say this, that all information is like on the this Discord, and they hate that themselves. But it is the way that it is. I just hate it too, and I refuse to fall victim to a system that will grind me up and churn me into a number in the memories list. By the way, 3 of you are getting banned tonight from the Discord just for fun. You're going to be sacrificed tonight. It's just, you know, you're getting sacrificed to the system because I enjoy the system. Creating a game in s&box, you really want to know things, how to do things in the right order. Yes. Okay, here we go. Create a project. Yes. Shooter game. Top-down game. Scene system. Yes, I know this. Scene is your game world. Everything that renders and updates the game should at one time should be in scene. Game object. Scene contains multiple game objects. Components contain... Okay, yeah. The game developer ultimately creates games by programming new components. Yes. That's it. That's it. Libraries. We use to create self-contained code and assets you can reuse in multiple projects. It can be shared with the organization with the whole community. Why do we put up with this dictatorship? Parasocialism. Riot. Do you see why I added it? Do you see why I added it? Okay, I added it because it's funny to see. Okay, it makes sense. You know what? Just for you, I will also add in. I should make a separate group for all of this. Actually, no, I'll do it later. Okay, I'm gonna fix my sources after. I'm gonna fix my sources to make this work. I'm gonna lower the cost of Riot. Actually, I don't like that it's too cheap. Too expensive. I like that Riot is cheap enough where you want to use it a lot, but doesn't feel so expensive that you feel like you're not getting your money's worth. Because it's funny to me that you use it to be mad at me, right? That's the whole purpose. So it should be cheap. It doesn't have any other purpose than to give you a voice, right? Because you must scream, but you have no mouth. Therefore, you riot. The price is now 50. Or you have the emote, yeah. Or you have the emote, yeah. But those emotes will change once I rebrand, which I'll get into eventually in the future at some point. Now it costs 50. So to those of you who beta tested the riot command, thank you. If you use it 4 times, you lost probably 100 times, like 500 times the total value that you would have if you just waited until I updated it. That's on you. Yes, keep on writing. Yes, just keep on writing, chat. Don't worry, chat. Your complaints are heard. HR has heard that you absolutely hate it here. HR has heard that you're angry about the state of, the society that we built here. We simply don't care. Yes. Okay, so libraries, this is just a code control thing and also like a code separation thing. This auth tokens. What auth tokens? You're using HTTP requests or WebSockets, and you use auth tokens to validate the request was sent from a valid Steam user in a sandbox game session. How would that work if you export the game for standalone? Would it require you to release your game on Steam? What if you want to release your game on itch.io and allow those players to run it too? What if you have your own authentication system? Useful if you want to tie it to a specific Steam account or to prevent botting. I imagine this probably needs a bit more work to eventually get to a point where it's a generic construct. Or you would build your own authentication, which is, honestly, that's what you have to do anyways for most game engines. And just hope to God that you don't ruin yourself. You know what I mean? You gigantified it. So it makes sense. Okay. I mean, I'm not going to use this then. Code gen. What the fuck? For someone that actually when the method is called, a property set, which return a different value when the property is read. For the love of God. I don't know if I would ever want to use this. Wait, but the scene system uses it for broadcast RPCs. Why? Oh, I guess that makes sense. If there's a server, then you do one different thing versus something else. Right. That makes sense, actually. No, that definitely makes sense. But this feels like the magic functions that you have in PHP or Ruby, where you can define like a different behavior depending on how you use something. Like imagine defining like a magic get operator for a property and just never knowing that existed. And you get like a random value, you perform a bunch of calculations, and all of a sudden there's like a database access, and then you have an n+1 problem. Then you're doomed. You're gonna make riots fill a whole page. Don't worry, chat. Riot as much as express your displeasure. We just don't care if you do. Management says we don't care. Why did you say nice? Do you see me right now? Are you seeing me? You can be honest. Or was that nice in terms of the reference to the management? You filled it. Good job, chat. What's funny is that you would have filled it if you resize your window so you see one message at a time. You would just see like it would be filled, right? You're very lucky I don't ban you guys for spamming. I just let you guys do it. That's cheating. I'm increasing the price. Because of your dissent, I'm increasing the price to 100. Accuse me again of crimes like that, and it will get more and more expensive. Spam is a social construct. I agree. Every time you guys... Okay, you know what it is? I need to make that dynamic. Okay, I'm going to write this down for the future. Dynamic riot costing. Okay? I want this to feel like an authoritarian society. I want this to feel like an authoritarian society. Now to add more. When I want to tighten my iron grip on everybody's thrusty, I will increase the cost of this at the press of a button. It will go down as more and more freedoms are given to the chat. This will be easier. I want this to be dynamic in some way. Maybe I'll have another channel point redeem, which costs a lot, so somebody can sacrifice themselves to lower the cost of Riot. How about this? Optional channel points. I'm so sorry that you spent the oil up because it's not here. I haven't set up the scene yet. Optional channel point redeem. Or also, I need to remember the stream management console. Stream management console. You can't see this writing, but also has the redeem, the alert embed. Music should lower as an alert is redeemed. Alternatively, set this up via the filter in OBS. Gotta oil up between riots. Okay, channel points. Here we go. Optional channel point redeem for fighting against the aristocracy, where a viewer can voluntarily submit themselves to be banned for a day to lower the cost of Riot forcibly. How about that, Chad? Do you like that idea? Optional channel point redeem for somebody to sacrifice themselves to lower the cost of Riot. It'll be like a scale of like how much I want to tighten the grip of like my dictatorship versus how many people are willing to die for freedom. I think I like that. The cost is now 500 because you have all gone crazy with it. I like that. Why is there what is this? How low can it go? Oh, wait, to 1. It can go all the way to 1. So people can sacrifice themselves all the way to 1. But it won't be easy. I think what I'll do is that I'll treat it. This is a weird reference. I'll treat it like the demi skill from Final Fantasy. I'll treat it like the demi skill from Final Fantasy, where every sacrifice cuts it down by 1/8 cost. Right? That's the cost of a life. So when it's really expensive, it gets rid of more overall points. But either way, it only removes 1/8 of the current cost. So a lot of people have to sacrifice themselves for democracy. I think that's good. I like that. I like the idea of like democracy versus my dictatorship. I like that. Yeah, that's good. We'll program that eventually. We'll program that eventually, chat. Well, like in many dictatorships, riots don't do anything though, so not sure how much it's worth it. Make sure it rounds down. See, that's the secret. Then you get a free 0 cost riot. Then we run into a bug and the entire system breaks. You can't fool me. It's rounding up. No, but see, riots here do something, right? Riots here are a comedy thing. It's meant to be like a comedy interaction. It doesn't do nothing. It's a way for you to express displeasure without an emote. It's a way for you to put your displeasure into something. And and one of the goals of the command was to actually track it. So, German has like a -2 tracker. I wanted to have that, but with channel points. So I could track how many riots there were at like the average cost of them over time. To see like, okay, at what points in my stream did people have the most fun, and at what points in the stream did the people hate it the most? But it was just right now it just does nothing. It's more manual, and because it's manual, I can say no. So scene system uses code gen for broadcast RPCs and also be used for creating network variables. How can you use code generator to create an RPC system? If it is server, then you do that. Otherwise, if you do it with RPC, public class RPC attribute. All generator flags wrap method, and then you create an instance that then calls on RPC invoked. No, you don't create an instance. It's on the instance itself. This instance itself would then run this version. I see. Oh, and then it has a resume. I see. Yeah, I can only really see this being useful for networked functions, actually. I don't know why you would use code generator anywhere else. Magic functions, I feel like, are the bane of most systems because when used poorly, it leads to very, very confusing code that isn't very readable. Especially the PHP system. This is a much better system because you have to like specifically specify the flow of the code. Though because it's in a attribute, I wonder how well like code sense works with it. Like that whole like being able to move to the definition, I see the behavior. I wonder how well that works. But at least it's clearer than say what PHP does, where it's like you have a single magic get method that you then need to see what the property name is and then whether you ignore it or you do something with it. It's such a mess. Whereas this is a much better system with the attributes, so it's not as bad, but I still would be remiss to use it, I think, for code, except for like, you know, transparent network calls, aka RPC stuff. Otherwise. Handle different parameter types instead of having a single generic callback signature. What? The correct method will be called based on the original parameters of the wrap method. What? Code generator flags. Wrapping methods. Something wrap method. Wait, doesn't... What? Why would you want this? Can't think of why would you want that. Because don't you have C sharp? Don't you have generics in a C sharp? Yeah, you have generics, and then you have type parameters, and then you have like generic types like a T. Like you can define T to be any type definition, and you can constrain it. No, similar to like C++. So why would you want? Why would you want to do this? I'm trying to think of why would you want to do this. I'm trying to find a use for the code gen stuff before I dismiss it fully. That would be useful and makes the code easier to work with versus making it more complex. Because generics handles this fairly well, except for variable function arguments. Variable function arguments are where it gets complicated. Because then you would have either a container at the end that contains the rest of the arguments, in which case you'd have to constrain the type and do like a type check on all of them, because the type would probably be a union of multiple things if you wanted like a T3, T4, TF5, but you also had a T1, T2 specific function, in which case you would have to have like, you know, T3, T4, T5 be a union of the three types. And then you'd have to like do a type check on the final like argument that contains a list of all three. But then why would you want to do that? The problem is that T1, T2, T3 is masking the possibility of why you would want that to be used and why that specific hard case scenario of a union type that you'd want to handle on its own would appear versus just a generic list of arguments that have all the same type, like a log function. A log function would have a first argument category, which is like an enum, which makes sense. And the last argument would just be a variable number of parameters, which are just strings. Unless you can't do that in C#. Can you do that? Variable arguments. Method parameters, here we go. Okay, well, okay, reference, yeah, okay. Yes, yes, out, okay, yes, okay, this. Well, params modifier, here we go. Yeah, here we go. This is the collection type. Okay, so the collection type, yeah, okay, yeah, so it exists. Yeah, I guess you would only want this if you have a variable number of arguments for the same function name. that differ in their type so much that each one is a distinct case. But wouldn't that just be a code smell of like this function actually does different things in different cases? And so you might want to think about it from a much low, like you might want to think about it splitting it into like different low level pieces. Because I could see it making sense for this when you want a generic function handler that then reacts to certain types of functions being used. But I feel like doing this by itself is a code smell. But I also can't really tell because it's been a while since I've had to play around with the idea of like function. I forget the term for it. It's something that you use very often in functional programming. Say like function currying, effectively. Let's say. Anyway, scene system. Yeah, execution. You should not rely on the order in which the same callback methods get called with different game objects. It's not predictable. If you need more control, you should use a game object system. What? Which the same callback get invoked for different game objects. Oh, so like on awake might not be called at the same time as some other game objects on awake. It might be some other, like within the initialization. I don't get it. Log in. What? Why do I need to log in? The game object system. Game object systems contain systems that need to do work in specific places during a frame. For example, one of these systems is the scene animation system, which finds all skinned model rendering combos and works out all the animations in parallel. This is faster than doing it in update, yes. And avoids weird out of order problems. It gives a single point in the frame where we know for sure that all the bone positions are up to date. In a weird way, this is what it's funny because this is exposing what the source engine is under the hood. Under the hood, this is what you'd have to do anyways, right? It just happens to expose it in this particular space where it makes sense to do some things in this way compared to just doing it the scene graph way where you have like components and game objects and like stuff. That makes sense. Man, reprogramming. See, I didn't lie to you all. I didn't lie to you. But I am getting tired, so we may have to shelve this for next time. Again, remember the schedule, okay? Remember the schedule. This is a dream. Okay, well, the dream is about to end. Wake up, hunter. It's time to hunt. The dream will eventually have to end because I'm sleepy. I'm EB. I'm EB. And because, okay, look, okay, programming order. We need to make a stream management console before everything else. But we also have only 3 days to do it before the game jam really kicks in stride. I'll be reading the docs off stream as well because this section, learning the docs, we're not really programming. We're just thinking through why we'd use these things and what I need for this particular concept. I'll also spend some time tonight to probably finalize the concept, at least over the next three days, because I need this time anyways to finalize the concept to see if it's possible. I just want to see if this is possible. The main thing I need to see is like, stuff like the shaders. How do you interact with like shaders? How do you interact with like, say, custom like separate servers and like stuff? How do you interact with like networking across larger servers? How do you interact with like the performance stuff? How do you get the game into as many players' hands as you can? Stuff like that, right? So we'll see how this goes. Stages are based around certain events. For example, the phase step stage is called when taking the phase during phase update. So you know what? Thank you for joining me. It's about that time. Thank you for joining me on this wonderful journey down s&box. Now you know what s&box is. Now you know a bit of my personal philosophy towards development. How I treat development more as a job, but also as an interest towards very specific things. I'm interested in very specific topics, so it's not a generic interest for me, but it is a generic interest in that what I'm typically am interested in ends up being generic enough that you can use it anywhere. Except for this stuff. This stuff is like very on its own. We'll explore more this more. I'll read the docs over this, okay? And we'll see what we can make with this. But that's it for the s&box section. Again, this is a very interesting approach to doing things, especially when you consider again that this is the source engine itself. So if you've ever used the source engine, it's a very different model of doing things. You quite literally don't really have any of this. You can't just attach things very like willy-nilly to things. It's very surprisingly complex. And Hammer is primarily the main way. And then you develop and you program like widgets widgets, quote unquote, that you pull down from it. I forget the like term that it had, but you program the scripts and stuff that you then pull in from like Hammer. So you might have the character like Combine Soldier, and then you might have the nav mesh you just pulled in for like a map, and then you would program that beforehand. This is more like mix and match, right? Obviously, because it's a scene graph, you can attach things and change the behavior on the fly by simply changing what's attached to what, and thus what interacts with like what. which isn't necessarily the easiest thing to do out of the box by yourself from just straight up source engine. So yeah, really cool, very very nice. At least as far as I can recall, it's been again like nearly a decade. So I really enjoy this. I think this is gonna be interesting to use. Again, it's fascinating that Facepunch Studios is doing this, but I can see the potential of it being very very good. However, I also immediately see some drawbacks until they get to the point where standalone games are a thing, right? It's just the reality that because you're building it off of the source engine, and because Valve is very, very, let's say, interesting when it comes to their development paradigm, you run into this case where, Source 2 SDK was supposed to be released a long time ago, at least by their words, but also it was whenever it was ready type of deal, and it still isn't. And so you never really know if you're going to be staying up to date with the rest of the industry in terms of all these cool new fancy things, right? I mean, you don't even know if platform support is going to be a major issue in the future, or if you need to delve deep into the engine to make it work. I'm sure that the developers of, say, games like Vindictus, by the way, which Vindictus, the online game by Nexon, Vindictus, the third-person action game RPG, that shit is made in the source engine. Probably ran into this issue. I think because they ported it to console at some point, as well as a bunch of other games. Like Apex Legends is made in the very heavily modified version of the source engine. As is Titanfall. So I'm sure they had a bunch of these issues themselves, and it's why they own so much of their own fork of the source engine. But we'll see how far this goes. I just see that as being a problem because you never really know how it's going to evolve. And you never really know what happens when, like, say, a new paradigm. No one would have thought OpenGL would have been closed, like effectively deprecated in favor of Vulkan. Effectively, not really, not officially, but effectively, that's what it feels like. Or maybe I'm wrong on that, but that's what it feels like. Anyways, cool. I like game engines, but the problem with a game engine is this: you need a game idea. And you need to have the time to make a game. So we're going to see how this goes. But we're going to see it over time. Thanks for watching this segment of Sandbox. And I can't wait to see how this is going to go.